Spoiler alert, I like the Springbar. Let me explain. Good tint, better tint, best tint.
Gear up and get outside.
So here's the deal. I'm going to be pretty raw with you on this video. A lot of times I try to plan things out and I want to say the right thing. I'm a fairly new YouTuber figuring this whole deal out. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know I've done a bunch of these tint reviews, and naturally people start asking questions about the differences between them. And you might also ask yourself, you know, why would a guy have so many of these canvas tints? Well, truth be told, I'm doing it to try to build a little business. Let me say this though, this is not a sponsored video. Springbar doesn't even have an affiliate program. I don't get any commissions off of them. If you bought a Kodiak tint from one of my links to one of the big retailers like Cabela's or something, we'd get a small commission. But this video is not motivated by money. I do want to tell you, however, to put everything in perspective, that I actually got the Springbar tints from Springbar for free as samples to test and review. I also got a discount from Kodiak in order to get this tint. So far I'm doing this at a big loss because I'm still spending money on gear to review. However, just because someone gets a piece of gear doesn't mean that they're gonna just be flowery about it all the time. In fact, there's gear I've been given that I haven't even published anything about because I didn't think it was that great. Enough about that. I hope you take my word for it. Let me just tell you why I really like the Springbars. All right, Bert. Come with me, let's take a look over here. Here is the Kodiak Canvas Flex-Bow Deluxe. This is a lovely tint. While I just got this one last summer, I have previously owned a Kodiak tint, a Flex-Bow like this, for a long period of time and used it a lot. So I'm pretty familiar with the tint, and guess what? It's a great tint. This video is not about saying bad about anyone. I love this tint, it's a fantastic tint. Good company, good customer service. In fact, when I reached out to their customer service just with a random question, they responded back within 45 minutes and had a happy face emoji and were helpful. I mean, it's a great company, there's nothing wrong with it. But there are some reasons I liked the upgrade to the Springbar. First things first, let's put this in perspective. Here I have the Kodiak Flex-Bow Deluxe in a 10-foot by 10-foot version. These other two tints are a 10-foot by 14-foot version. However, you can get the Kodiak in that very same footprint. As far as price goes, a Kodiak Flex-Bow in a 10-foot by 14-foot size, so apples to apples with the classic Jack 140 and the Skyliner I have here from Springbar, the Kodiak Flex-Bow tints run between $700 and $880 retail. $880 for that VX version that has the extra windows on the side. The deluxe version like I've got is about $100 less, and then they have the basic version. I wouldn't recommend the basic version because it only has the one window next to the door. It's gonna get real hot in there in the summer. And it doesn't have the vents up top like the deluxe, we'll show you. The classic Jack 140 is $1,200. The Skyliner from Springbar is $2,100. These are all retail prices as of the time of filming, so they could change and they might be different at different vendors. You can look that up yourself. We're talking more than double the money to get a Skyliner compared to a Kodiak Flex-Bow in a similar size. But the biggest reason I like the Springbars is because they simply are more versatile, and ding, 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 they're hot tint ready. And man, do I love a hot tint. I didn't know I loved hot tints until I really tried them this past year, and geez, I don't think I can ever go back to the regular way of camping in a tent. So the Kodiak Flex-Bow to me is like a pair of skinny jeans compared to these other tints that are more like a nice relaxed fit. There's a few reasons for that. Just about everything on the Kodiak is pretty fixed. You have the poles that are actually pretty skinny themselves. There's no adjustability there. Same on the side poles. Nice sturdy poles, but no adjustability. One size fits all. It does keep things pretty taut, works pretty well, but not as much flexibility compared to the Springbars that have adjustable poles here. That allows you to adjust based on the weather conditions. I found when it rains a lot, you might want to actually loosen that to make it easier for water to run off the roof. You also have adjustable awnings on the Springbar. This is the classic Jack. And even more adjustability on the Skyliner, which has not only adjustable poles, but you can put them in different places. You could take this awning pole and you can put it right here, loop it in there, and then pin it down there, and that gives you some additional structure on this big sidewall in inclement weather. And you have a rear awning on the Skyliner. I don't have it pulled out right now because actually I have that one awning pole attached to the back and guide out from there. That gives you just a much more rigid wall. So on the 10 by 10 like I have in the Flex-Bow right now, that kind of adjustability may not be as big a deal. You may not need the extra rigidity on the walls. But when you get a wider span in a 10x14, that really comes in handy. You don't have it on the classic jack either, so this is very much a middle of the road. But overall, the Skyliner is definitely the most weatherworthy of all of these tents. On the Kodiak, you have simple galvanized steel poles. On the classic jack, they're also galvanized steel, but on the Skyliner, they are aluminum. And much of this, the aluminum is more corrosion resistant than the even galvanized steel, which could corrode over time. Another thing that makes these spring bars more robust is the way they stake down. So they have this hem that juts out, double seamed, comes out about 1.5 inches. So the floor doesn't just meet the wall at a 90-degree angle. There's a rope that runs through here. That gives a real good clasp for these metal stake loops to go into. There are more stakes on the Skyliner than there are on the classic Jack 140 than there are on the Flex-Bow. The wall meets the floor at a 90-degree angle. There is a hem inside, but I actually had a viewer comment on one of the videos saying he had a Kodiak that actually got super wet inside because water was leaking through at that seam when it was just raining real hard. So yeah, I haven't had that experience, I can't say that firsthand, but I have heard things like that. The way the hem is done on the spring bars is great because it actually makes water shed away from the tent. So it's a simple design that works super well. Here are the 3 different stakes from the 3 different tents. Kodiak, Classic Jack, Skyliner. Now the Kodiak and the Classic Jack are pretty much the same, about 1 foot long, nail style. Yeah, I think they're just galvanized steel. They do the job, but they can twist around in the ground. They're really hard to set in snow. The Skyliner has this wedge shape, made in America. That wedge shape just stays in the ground so well. I mean, so well, it's kind of hard to get out, but even in sand or snow, well, to be honest, I haven't used it in snow, but in every other kind of terrain so far, I think this is the best tent stake I've seen. All of these tents have 8.5 ounce duck canvas walls and 10 ounce canvas roofs. They're all treated with some kind of waterproofing treatment. That treatment that the canvas undergoes is supposed to help it be more waterproof, shed water better, and also resist mold and mildew, but it's kind of 6s there. In the Kodiak, they use this polyvinyl floor, which is similar to the floor in the spring bar, except this one's thicker. This is a 16 ounce floor versus a 12 ounce in the spring bars. All of them are seamless, so that's great. None of them are bathtub style. When it comes to space and comfort, they're all comfortable. There's no doubt about that. I am 6'1" and I have a good amount of headroom in this Kodiak. And I can even walk around pretty well, except for where that loft is, you know, but that could be taken down. But you can move around quite a bit. A couple other differences, the Kodiak does have these vents up top. Now that's only in the deluxe version. In the VX version, that's not there, but it has big windows. And in the basic version, that's not there either. And then you have in the deluxe version 2 windows, one in the door, one in the next to the door. If it was the basic version, there would not be a window in the door. And there is a door on both sides, one there, one there. You know, 2 doors doesn't really get me excited. I don't care about that. One always gets blocked with my family anyway. I have a family of 5 plus a dog. We can clamp in this 10x10 just fine. That's what we've done for a long time and it was great. However, once we move to a 10x14, you're like, ooh, that's the relaxed fit. That's going from a skinny jean to a nice relaxed sweat pant. So when we moved up to this puppy, this is the Classic Jack, and I can walk around a lot. I mean, here I am walking around the whole perimeter. I mean, it's roomy. Look, standing in the center, I actually have a little less head clearance, I'd say, than I do in the Kodiak, but you know, it's pretty nominal. Still works. I don't have the loft up like normal. Right now, here's the loft in here. I have it in this sling formation, which I find real handy. You could do that in the Kodiak too. This loft normally though, will span the entire length of this tent. Compared to the Kodiak, I love this giant picture window. There's not a second door and I'm happy about that. That giant window is fantastic. I didn't tie it up properly, although you can. The spring bars also have this little port, both the Classic Jack and the Skyliner, to run a cord in there out to a solar panel or generator or something. You know, the Kodiak does not have that, but really big deal. You could still run a cord out the door. You got extra windows compared in the Classic Jack compared to the Kodiak. Big window next to the door. And then I really like the doors on the spring bar. There's actually 2 panel doors compared to just one with a window inside. So the actual mesh panel is separate. It zips down the middle, and then at the bottom, it can be tied back to the side. I really like the door design on the Springbar. I just think it's practical and makes a lot of sense to me. But compared to the Classic Jack, I especially like the Skyliner door. It's like the Classic Jack, except it's humongous. It's way, way wider. I mean, you can easily carry a cot in and out of there. And then you come in here, and man, it is just luxuriously spacious. If you're only two and you have your cot set up like that, I mean, you could do a dance in here. And then this is the big deal with the Skyliner. It is so much more voluminous. It is large inside. It has about 2 feet more width from the front to the back compared to the Classic Jack, and a little more than a foot in width end to end. And that gives you a whole lot more space to walk around in here. I mean, you could do laps. This is where the relaxed fit comes in. It's just so much more comfortable and voluminous. For my family, we have lots of room in here. For us, for gear, some room to move around in rather. You got nice windows in here too. No vents at the top like in the Kodiak Flex-Bow Deluxe, but not really necessary since you got all these other windows. And then of course that door could be just one huge window. We got the stove jack in right now, but this can be a tiny little window as well in the summer. Now each of these tents gives you a little something to try to organize your accessories and things. And again, the Springbar one I just think is a more clever thought out design, especially in the Skyliner. They got this nice loft up here that's like a triangle on either end, but it's connected in the middle so you can hang a light here or your smelly socks. And then you get 2 of these little panels that can be hung either widthwise like that or vertical like that. They're interchangeable. No storage built in anywhere, however. Nice threshold. Actually, they all have good thresholds. In the Classic Jack, besides that loft, you've got sewn in pockets down below, which is great for your floor sleepers, for their books and flashlights. Then you got some additional pockets right here under that triangle window. And in the Kodiak, you've got a couple of pockets like that sewn in on either side. And then it comes with this organizer guy, and you could hang them both up on one side like I've got them or on different ends. And then it comes with one of these lofts, which depending on how you got it set up can be useful or not. As far as workmanship and quality goes, between the Classic Jack and the Kodiak Flex-Bow, I'd say it's pretty apples to apples. I've never noticed any real flaws, and they have excellent customer support. Both have great warranties or guarantees. These companies do work hard to keep you happy. Contrary to what I might have said in a previous video by mistake, the Kodiaks do have YKK zippers, as does the Skyliner. However, the Classic Jack has SBS zippers. That's just a Chinese brand of zipper. They work fine, they're still heavy duty, and I haven't had any problems. But the biggest reason of all that I am reaching now for my Springbar tent instead of my Kodiak tent is just because the Springbars are so much more versatile. These two in particular, and it's because of this thing sticking out the side. The Classic Jack 140 and the Skyliner are both hot tent ready. It doesn't include the stove, but it comes with everything you need when you buy the stove kit from Winterwell to convert this into a hot tent. If you're serious about winter camping or 4-season camping, especially out west where you get really cold, or even up north where it just gets darn cold and snowy, this is the way to go. I've been out in 0-degree temps with that fire blazing inside, and I was in a t-shirt. We cook in there. You know, the kids don't want to leave the tent. It's so comfy. They're reading, we're playing games, we have a good time on those long winter nights. You just get a lot more runway out of these hot tents. It's pretty awesome. Now you could do a DIY solution to convert a Kodiak into a hot tent, and I'm sure people have. I've seen videos about it. But you know, you might be avoiding a warranty, you might be prone to leaks, you might have issues with the way you set up your stove jack. You know, I'm just not super comfortable cutting holes into roofs in general. I try to avoid that. So having it in a ready to go kit like you get from Springbar is awesome. Now I know that much money for something like the Skyliner is significant compared to a Kodiak Flex-Bow, and I don't want to belittle that. If that's just out of your budget, don't even worry about it. The Kodiak Flex-Bow is an excellent tent, and like I say, I've used it for years and I love it. I can't say really anything bad about it. It's just one of those deals, when you learn what there is, then the next step up, man, is it hard to step back down. The Classic Jack 140 is definitely a step up from the Kodiak Flex-Bow, and then the Skyliner is yet another big step up from the Classic Jack. Why is that? Well, the hot tent capability is the big thing between the Flex-Bow and the Classic Jack. Classic Jack 140 only, the 100 does not support the hot tint natively. And then you go from the Classic Jack 140 up to the Skyliner, and you've got more volume, it's more spacious and comfortable, and you also have more versatility when it comes to weather. Being able to set those poles differently against the walls or guy out those awnings, it can stand up to a lot more wind and a lot more weather. It's also very, very cool that the Skyliner is made in America. Very few outdoor companies are still making gear in the USA. These guys do it right in Salt Lake City, Utah, and there's something to be said about that. And while the Springbar Skyliner is made in the USA, the Classic Jack is not. It is an imported product, just like the Kodiak Flex-Bow. If you wanted to have the closest comparison to a Kodiak from Springbar, you really ought to look at the Highline series. They have the Highline 6 and the Highline 8. Those are very similar to the Kodiak Flex-Bow Deluxe and at almost the exact same price point. Those are also imported products. If you want a USA made tent, you're gonna pay a little bit more. So for now, I'm gonna keep camping in the Springbar Skyliner whenever I can, and I would be more than happy to take out the Classic Jack at any time. I love having the hot tent feature, I love the extra space, and I love supporting a company that makes stuff here in the US. But as I said earlier, this video is not sponsored. It doesn't matter to me if you use my links or not. Even if you do use the links in the description of Springbar, they are not affiliate links. It's just going to take you to their webpage to check it out. I think it's a neat company. I think it's a great product, and so I'm going to keep using it. And coming back to our question of whether or not the Springbar Skyliner is really worth more than twice as much as a Kodiak Flex-Bow Deluxe or VX, that's really up to you to decide if you can spare the money and if that's worth it to you. If money is no object, I would definitely do it. However, could you spare an extra few $100s for that Classic Jack 140 and have that hot tint capability, more versatility? I would absolutely do that. If you want to see exactly how these Springbar Skyliner tints are made right there in Salt Lake City, Utah, be sure and check out the factory tour video I did. And if you want to just get a more detailed review of this, I did a very detailed review of the Skyliner tint that you can watch here. There you have it. Just a man and his tents.